So I'll actually just start formally by saying welcome everybody to episode 5 of the Moonshot Ideator series. We're pretty excited to have the team from Microsoft here. Irrespective of whichever part of the world that you're in, you will know Microsoft and you will know about the work that they're doing in the space area and the space industry, and hopefully this session will bring some of that to life. The session is called Building with Microsoft. And we have a few of the team here, and I'll pass over to Alex in a moment and get everybody to introduce themselves. But in terms of what we're looking for in this session, what you'll have is an opportunity to actually look at the practical application of the Azure platform and how it actually applies to the breadth of space and space adjacent industries. So a wide range of uses and a wide range of practical applications for the tools. And we hope you find it useful and really informative and maybe entertaining, although not quite as entertaining as the ConiCon. Having said that, the session is designed to be interactive, so please feel free to ask the team questions, and we'll also have some time for Q&A at the end. So with that, I will pass over to you, Alex, to make a start.
Yeah, thanks very much, Alice.
Go for it. Thank you, and thanks for being here.
Oh, look, thanks so much for having us, the Microsoft team along. It's great to be part of episode 5 in this Ideator series. I'm Alex Nelson. I'm in the Azure Space Engineering team based out of Sydney, calling in tonight from Canberra. And I have dark hair, I'm wearing glasses and wearing a light coloured sweater. We're really excited to be here tonight, and our aim is to share some really practical information that will hopefully spark some thinking for you about how you can get started on our platform. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself quickly and Aswin then?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alex. Nick Ward, I'm the Chief Architect for Microsoft in the partner team. I spend my days working with cloud businesses from startups through to mature organizations. So yeah, delighted to be here today. Aswin?
Hello. Hi everyone. So I'm really glad to be here and be able to actually look at all the cool startups in the call. So I think so my name is Aswin and I'm the cloud solutions architect. Similarly with Nick, I work with partners as well, but I work from Malaysia and covering the partners in APAC region. So really hope to be able to actually share some tips and tricks with you guys today.
Great, that's one. Now, Nick, are you sharing or am I sharing?
I could share. I've got it ready to go. That might be easier. Save us swapping back and forth. A little bit, but I'll go back to the start. How's that? Can everybody see that? All right.
Sure.
That looks great. Thank you.
Great. Let's go to the second slide. Nick, that'd
Yep.
be great. Awesome. Put that in. Slideshow.
I was just going to leave it like this because I'm going to be swapping back and forth between this and
browser
the browser.
and Deck. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Thank you. So what I wanted to touch on today was a really high-level overview of the work and the investments that Microsoft is making in tools for the space industry globally. Our engineering effort has been underway for about 2 years, and it's very much an innovation and partnerships-led approach, bringing advanced capabilities to really support and underpin the space industry and space adjacent industries. There's 4 key pillars to the work we're doing with the industry. The first is global connectivity, and this is really about connecting data from satellites anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world for any customer at any security level. So those capabilities do offer command and control of satellites, but also importantly, the downlinking of the data from those satellites into the Azure platform, where the suite of tools that Nick is going to take you through, you can use that data for operational purposes, analytics, and really any scenario you would like to look at. The second pillar is geospatial analytics. So that's taking the plethora of Earth observation data and how that can be turned into knowledge and insights for sharing and analysis and input into your operations. The third pillar is Azure in space, and you may have seen some of the stories. We're up on the Azure, the International Space Station with Azure on the HPE Spaceborne Computer 2, running some data and analytics scenarios up there, really trying to prove out that compute can take place in space and data and analytics can be done in space out at that, what we call the very ultimate edge. And the final pillar is emulation and synthetics. And that's really about enabling the developers and the builders in the space industry. Think of it effectively as a digital twin of a satellite. So how you can access software development kit and tools to help you simulate and plan for satellite missions in the cloud environment before you put your satellite or your rocket up into space, which we know is a challenging and expensive exercise. So how much of that insight and planning can you do on Earth to ensure it's a successful mission? So now I'll hand over to Nick, who's going to dive into some of the supporting platform pieces. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Alex. So today we're going to be looking at a couple of elements of what we call the Microsoft Cloud. So the Microsoft Cloud is our all-up term for our cloud services, and it's really a collection of cloud services that do various different things in the different packages. Everything from Microsoft 365, which is what a lot of people think about when they think of Microsoft, things like documents and spreadsheets and calendars and emails and chat and video calls and all of those sorts of things, that sort of office productivity suite. That's all offered as a cloud service called Microsoft 365 these days. LinkedIn, that I'm sure a lot of you would be familiar with, Microsoft Dynamics 365, which is our business processing software, GitHub, which is actually the shirt I'm wearing today. GitHub is a tool for developers to store and manage their code and even automate that code to deliver it to a production system. Microsoft Power Platform, that I'll be talking a little bit more about in the course of this presentation, and Microsoft Azure rounds out the Microsoft Cloud. So we'll be looking in detail today at Microsoft Azure to begin with, and I'll talk a bit more about really what it is and how you can get started with using it. And then I'll talk a bit about the Power Platform, and then I'll hand over to Aswin, who will take you through Microsoft 365 in a little bit more detail. But yeah, this is all offered as a cloud service. It's very much what we call a hyperscale cloud service. So it's one of the biggest clouds on the planet. Effectively, to most normal circumstances, it effectively offers near unlimited capacity for what you need to do. Of course, that always needs to have an asterisk if you're doing something truly big, but for a lot of purposes, it's effectively an unlimited set of services. And they're all provided not only as tools that you can use, but tools that you can build your offering on. So Alex has described a couple of the space scenarios there, and there's the likes of the Office of Planetary Observations that are using Azure to help provide satellite imagery to town planners, so they can better plan how they're going to develop green space and various other aspects of town planning. And Spiral Blue, that do image processing on satellites using the capability Alex referred to there, actually of doing some processing actually on the satellite of the data before then shipping it back to Earth and having that processed in the Azure cloud infrastructure as well. So these tools are there for you to use and build your product on top of. So let's have a look at Azure in a bit more detail, and you might call it Azure, or I tend to use the American pronunciation because I hear it so many times every day of Azure. Well, that's probably not even the American pronunciation. It's my own weird version of it. but let's have a look at it in more detail. So what is Microsoft Azure? It's a collection of infrastructure and serverless and various services for running your systems. So you can build an application and you can deploy that onto Azure and have Azure run that application for you. At the bottom of the diagram, we provide sort of core infrastructure services like compute, virtual machines, networking, storage, et cetera, that you can use in a very sort of raw and base form. But we know that a lot of startups and other businesses want to use that underlying infrastructure for higher level things like web applications or mobile apps or databases or AI and machine learning or media. And so we actually have a range of services that will run a web application for you, or will run a database for you, or will run, you know, a number of other of these categories of services for you, so that you don't have to spend time managing operating systems and patching servers and things like that. You can spend more time concentrating on your application code, because at the end of the day, you just want a database to underpin it, for example. And then there's also a suite of devices that can bring Azure outside of just the public cloud environment and can bring it on premises or even onto satellite, as mentioned before. And then finally, there's a series of tools, development tools like Visual Studio and GitHub. And we're going to be talking a bit about Power Apps in the Power Platform section in a moment as well. But hopefully that's a useful context for what Azure is. I'm now going to swap gears and show you how you can get started with building your application in Azure. So bear with me while I swap over to my browser. And hopefully you can now see my browser with the Azure page. Yep, seeing some nods, fantastic. So if I want to get started using Azure, the easiest way to do it is to go to azure.microsoft.com/free. And if you go to that URL, and I'll be sharing a deck with all of these URLs that I'm going to be referring to in it. But if you go to azure.microsoft.com/free, you reach this page and you can hit the green Start Free button and you can start using Azure literally for free. We give you 12 months worth of free services in a variety of popular services. And there's also over 40 services in Azure that are always free anyway. A lot of the Azure services have a free tier. And then if you want to scale larger or use more of it, then you need to step up to a paid tier. But it's really useful for getting started and trying out ideas to use a lot of the free services. So we'll provide you with $200 Azure credit for anything on the platform, and then 12 months ongoing free services across virtual machines and databases and storage and all sorts of things. And then again, there's the 40 plus services that are free or have a free tier at all times. I do want to point out at this point, and Alex is going to talk to this a little bit towards the end as well, which is that we do have the Microsoft for Startups program to be aware of. So you can go to startups.microsoft.com and hit the sign up button here. And this will not only give you free Azure, $1,000 worth of free Azure to help you ideate, but actually up to $150,000 worth of Azure for you to use and build as you build out and scale your business. And not only beyond Azure, it will give you access to Office 365 and Dynamics and the Power Platform that we're going to be talking about today as well. GitHub in the deal. So that's a good one to keep in mind, startups.microsoft.com. It's designed for startups to get access to the Microsoft Cloud and all of the services that are in it for your usage. But back to Azure, so you can hit that green Start Free button. I already have an account. So what I thought I'd do is just show you this video and again, I'll share the link to this video, which walks you through 4 minutes on what the whole startup process is for getting access to Azure. So if we start from here, in the video, they click that green button that I was talking about. And then there's a bit of an identification process where we're going to identify you via phone as well as via credit card. A credit card is needed for verification. You won't be charged. When you sign up for a free account, there actually is a sort of lock, if you will, on the account so that you can't run anything that will charge money. You have to actually go and unlock. So you have to consciously say, no, I'm happy to pay because I want to expand out my services. And that's it. Once we've ID'd you via phone and credit card and you agree to the terms, then you will end up in this screen, which is the Microsoft Azure portal, which is where you can manage your Azure environment from. So I'll go to the Azure portal now, which you can get to at just portal.azure.com. So I know I'm throwing a few URLs at you here, but again, there's a slide with them all there for easy reference later. The key one to remember really is azure.microsoft.com/free. That's where you can start from. So then once you do land on the Azure portal, the sort of question is, what next? Where do I go to from here? And so there's a few things that I want to point out. One is this subscriptions button. That's an important one to understand. This is the sort of the account, if you will, your Azure account, and allows you to go in there and you can see all of the things that you've provisioned. I've got one subscription that I have access to here. So I'll click into that one. And in here, I can see things like when my current billing period is, what currency I'm billing in. I can see things like how much I've been using in my Azure environment. And I can even go into what we call cost analysis down here. And I've got this reporting environment where I can see if I choose to go beyond the free environment. I mean, you can analyze your usage within the free tier, of course. But if you go over and unlock it, then you're going to want to know where's my money going. And so this is quite a useful cost analysis piece to understand how much you are using. Even useful within the free tier. So you understand if I was to pay for this, how much would it actually be costing me? And there's all sorts of different ways that you can drill into this data and look at it by different categories. For example, a useful one is what we call resource group. A resource group is a way of bundling your services together. So you might have a resource group for production and a resource group for development, for example, and then you can see easily how many services am I using in development versus production. We might have a resource group for application A and a resource group for application B, all sorts of different ways that you can do it. You can look at different time frames. So for example, I can go back the last 12 months. I can look at it via an aggregated view here, or I can say, just give me the monthly. And I can see here quickly that this blue resource group, which is called test, I was using a lot of it back in February. It cost me $130 for that month. But then I just turned it off and it didn't cost me any more from that point on. And that's a pretty classic cloud concept. If you provision something and use it, you pay for it while you're using it. And then when you turn it off, you're not paying for it anymore. So that's a little bit of an introduction to your subscription that you have. How do you actually go and provision something? So you can simply hit the Create a Resource button up the top here on the portal homepage. And let's say I wanted to provision a web application to start with. I want a simple web app to deploy my custom web application code to. So I could choose a virtual machine and I could go down that route. But if it's a web application, we have this service called a web app, which just means I don't need to worry about virtual machines and patching operating systems and all of those sorts of things. I can just concentrate on running my web application. And to show you how to create this, I first need to specify a resource group. And again, that's just a collection of resources that I group together. I'm going to call this my demo group. So everything I provision is just going to go into this demo group, and then I can manage that as a whole group. I'm going to call my web app Azure Space Demo. Let's see if that's available. It is. Fantastic. It asks me what type of application do I have? Is it just code, a web application, just computer code that I want to deploy and run? Or do I have a Docker container or a static web app? In this case, I've just got some code. I can run .NET, Java, Node, PHP, Python, Ruby. These are all development languages that I can choose to run my web application in. For this demonstration, I'm going to choose .NET. And I can choose where do I want this deployed. So I have access to all of the Azure regions here. So you can see it is a global service. I've got Europe and the Americas and so forth, but I'm going to choose Australia East for this particular deployment. And then it says, what plan do I want to use? So we've got lots of different web plans, including a free tier that I mentioned before. So I could hit change size here and I could select that free tier. If I go to dev test here, you can see we've got the F1, that's a free tier. But production, we recommend that you go with at least a standard tier, and we have right up to some more powerful premium tier options as well. For this demonstration, I'll just select the standard tier. And I'll click review and create. And that's really pretty much it. I can just hit the create button. So I've given just a recap. I've just hit the create button. I've chosen to create a web application. I've given it a name. I've said I want it in my demo resource group, which it's going to create for me. And I've specified the size of what I want to, how many resources I want allocated to my web application. So Azure now goes and deploys that for me. It'll just take a couple of seconds to spin it up. And then we'll be able to see what it's created for me. Feel free to come off mute and ask any questions if you have any, or please, Alice, Alex, Aswin, feel free to shout them out if somebody's written one in a chat. But I can now just go to that resource that I created. So this is my web app, and just to show you a few things here, there's an awful lot of features in a web app to help me run that efficiently. But I'll just point out a couple of the key things. One is I get a URL for my app. So it's at azurespacedemo.azurewebsites.net. So that's now live. You can go to it. It's a real web application that the internet can use. One of the features is I can specify a custom domain. Which is not available on the free tier. On the free tier, you do use the azurewebsites.net domain. But on any of the paid tiers, you can have a custom domain, so you can use your own website name there. I'm going to go and deploy my code to it now. So I can just go here to the deployment center. And as you'll see, it's pretty easy to deploy my code to the web app. We support a variety of different platforms that you can deploy code from, including, of course, GitHub, which has our own source code repository tool. So it asks me to first select where I want to deploy from. So GitHub and Bitbucket are two popular sources. I can just choose a local Git repository. I can even just FTP my files to this service. So there's lots of different ways that I can get my code in here, but my code is sitting up on GitHub. So I'll select GitHub. It's in my own personal organization, and that will just populate the repository list. I'm going to choose one that's called Simple. I've got a few different repositories here, so I'm just going to choose that Simple application, and I'll select the master branch, and I click Save. And now the Azure Web App is going to set up an automatic deployment process so that every time I check my code into GitHub, it's automatically going to take that code and deploy it to my web app automatically for me, which is really, really nice. Makes it super easy to get your code from development into production. While that's setting up, I will just point out to that point what we call deployment slots, because sometimes you don't want your code going automatically to production as soon as you check your code in. So we have this concept of slots. I can set up a staging slot or a testing slot, and I can set that up that my code automatically goes to the test or the staging slot. And then I can run some tests on that before then swapping that slot over to production. But this gives me a nice and really easy way to stage my code before it goes fully into production. And you can see with this traffic control here that I can even specify exactly how much traffic I want going to that particular slot. I can also do things like scale my service. So if I go here to scale out, you can see it defaults to manual scale, and I can select how many instances that I want my web app running on. And I can also set up a custom auto scale rule. So I can automatically scale based on a metric, which is very handy. I can specify, for example, CPU utilization. So whenever my web application is busy and the CPU is running hot, automatically scale out for me so that my web app remains responsive. And then importantly, also automatically scale it back down again so that I'm not paying more than I need to when my website is a little bit quieter. If I go back here to the deployment center and see how that deployment's going, it's setting up the first deployment. I should be able to click here on logs, and I can see that that's now deployed. I've got a success active result, which is great. So if I go here to my web application and I refresh, I should hopefully see now it's refreshed to be my little simple application instead. So it's as simple as that, to create a web application in Azure and publish your code to it and have it running on the internet on an extremely scalable platform that will pretty much handle almost any load that you can throw at it. Similarly, I could say I also want a database. So a very common pattern is to have a web application backed by a database. So if I go down here to databases, I can see I've got choices for MySQL databases, Postgres databases. We've got MariaDB, we've got Mongo, we've got all sorts of Oracle databases, all sorts of different databases that you can choose. Cosmos, which is our own NoSQL, extremely fast, high-scale database platform. Of course, you've got SQLDB and SQL Server, but I'll choose Postgres for this example. So I could simply hit the Create button here. Flexible Server is the recommendation for most applications. So I can hit Create for my Postgres Flexible Server. I'm going to put it in that same demo resource group that I created before. Let's call it also Azure Space Demo. Let's see if that's available. Yep, looks like it is. Again, I'll put that in Australia East. I can choose a PostgreSQL version. I can specify what workload type. So production, you can see the estimate is $268 a month. AUD, I'll choose a development server. $32 a month is the estimate there. I go and give it a password, and I can review and create. I don't want to save that password, and I hit the Create button. And it's as simple as that. I then go and create a Postgres database that I can then deploy my database to, connect it up to my web application, and I've got a multi-tier web application with database up and running, all in a managed environment where I don't need to worry about managing the operating systems and so forth. It just works for me. We do have guidance on architectures for deployment into Azure, including specific architecture guidance for startups. So this may well be well worthwhile checking out, including a very common and popular startup stack architecture. And so what we can see here is a web application, which is actually what we just deployed, along with a Postgres SQL database, which we also deployed. This bigger recommended architecture also includes a number of other services like the Azure Virtual Network and the CDN and so forth, which will build you a complete production-ready architecture, which is secure and very highly scalable. So we've got all of the guidance there for you to follow. If you're not interested in that sort of standard web architecture, then if you have a look at the link here, browse all architectures, we've got some 700 plus different architectures for all different styles of applications that you can search and browse through to find an architecture that suits what you're looking to do. And then you can use that architecture for your own application. One of the other really popular things in Azure is our AI services. Again, I can just hit create resource, select the AI and machine learning category, and I have access to our computer vision, our face detection algorithms, language understanding, our speech services, and also a lot of third-party AI and ML services available as well. So these are all available here for you to create. Lastly, I just wanted to also highlight support. Support's an important one. If you go for the Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub that I mentioned before at startups.microsoft.com, we'll actually include support in the bundle. So that's a nice way to get technical support for Azure as well. But either way, we would recommend that you take out a support plan. So that's just to highlight that these are available. There is basic support included for free, but that doesn't actually include technical support on the Azure services. That's more for self-help resources and resources around billing support and things like that. So that's a brief introduction to Azure and how you would go about getting started with Azure from the get-go. I can see there's a couple of questions in the chat. I might come back to the chat ones and answer them during Aswin's session, unless anybody wants to shout out a question. But I do have all of those resources and URLs available there. And so with that, let's swap gears and have a little look at Power Apps. Just to explain what Power Apps is, it's part of what we call the Power Platform, which is the Microsoft Cloud technology for no-code and low-code application development. So if you're looking at building a business application or an application and you don't want to, you're not a developer, you don't want to build the code from scratch the way I was, sort of the approach I was taking with Azure previously, then Power Platform and Power Apps might be the platform for you to consider. Power Apps is the tool that allows you to build those applications, and they all sit on what we call the Dataverse, which is a comprehensive database platform with tables already in it for accounts and contacts and leads and all sorts of business concepts are built into that Dataverse for you to build your applications on. And you can also create your own custom entities within the Dataverse as well. There are a variety of other tools in the Power Platform, Power Virtual Agents to build your own chatbots, Power Automate to build workflows, and Power BI for building reports and analytics, all in this no-code, low-code environment. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to swap back to my browser for a moment. So I'll hit new share and go back to the browser. And again, with Power Apps, you can also start here for free. So powerapps.microsoft.com, and there's a try free button there. So you can go up and sign up for Power Apps. Again, it's also included in the Founders Hub, the Microsoft for Startups Founders Hub as well. So you could get an allocation included there also. But with Power Apps, it's really as simple as going to powerapps.com and then exploring and creating applications. So to start with, I'll show you the Dataverse. So that's that underpinning database, which is provided out of the box. And you can see when I click on tables here, that it has a whole bunch of tables already built in. These are data tables that I can start building applications on right out of the box. So account, address, appointments, attachments, contacts, currencies, etc. There's actually hundreds of tables that are included out of the box that you can just start building your application on. You can actually use the Dataverse outside of Power Apps as well. If you just want to use that as the underlying database, but then build your own application on top, you can do that. But I'm going to show you how you can use Power Apps on top of the Dataverse. There are extensions as well for health and financial services and a variety of other industries. But I'm going to create a new app and I'll create an app based on Dataverse. So I can also create apps based on SharePoint, on SQL, on Excel. There's actually hundreds of third-party connectors that I can build apps on top of as well. But I'll choose the Dataverse. And Power App says, okay, you need a connection to the Dataverse. So I've already got one here and I'll select that connection. And it says, what table do you want to build your application on? I'll select contacts and I'll say connect. So this is going to now build me a base application on top of the contacts table within the Dataverse. And it's going to default to a mobile application. So this is something that I could then distribute around on iPhones and Android phones. And you can see it's actually built my application out here. But I can go in here and I can change things around. So I can select these controls and I can change the properties of them. Power Apps is almost a little bit like a mashup between PowerPoint and Excel. I can create these screens kind of like I create PowerPoint slides. Now I can insert buttons and labels and text and charts and all sorts of things. But I connect it to data in the same way that I can connect an Excel spreadsheet to data. So for example, if I was to select this control, I could edit the control and maybe I don't want the phone number appearing there. Maybe I want, I don't know, something different. What might I select? I might select maybe their anniversary. Can I select that? Yep. So I select that and you can see I now have, I don't know if that's a little hard to see, but I've changed that field so it now displays an anniversary date instead of displaying a phone number. But this is an application, it's ready to go. I can hit the play button and I can have a look at this particular person. I could go in and I could add a new contact. So it's a fully functional sort of data entry type application. There's a whole range of different templates. I've shown you a relatively simple one that's pretty quick to get started. There's a whole range of templates for creating different styles of applications. And you can actually create quite sophisticated applications with Power Apps. And in fact, our own Dynamics 365 suite, which is full CRM, field force automation, marketing, all sorts of all singing, all dancing business applications are actually Power Apps. They're built using this Power App tooling on top of the Dataverse. So we use it ourselves for our own business applications. So you can make really quite sophisticated applications on top of Power Apps. Let's swap gears back to the PowerPoint deck. And there's a couple of resources for you here. Again, getting started with Power Apps for free. There's a couple of Microsoft Learn modules, which is actually a resource worth mentioning as well. Microsoft Learn is our freely available learning material. So there's all sorts of courses there on all of our technology across the board. And I've just highlighted a couple around getting started with building apps in Power Apps that you might want to check out if that's of particular interest. I know there's a couple of comments in the chat, so I'll go and have a look at those. And I might hand over to Azwin. Azwin, if you want to share your screen and take over, you can take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nick. So let me quickly share my screen. Okay. Are you guys seeing my screen right now?
Yep, looks good, Azwin.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Okay, thanks, Nick. So I'll be going through with you guys on M365 or Microsoft 365. So just like what Nick have mentioned earlier, so it's one of our cloud that we have actually in our staples of different clouds that we actually have, Azure M365, Dynamics 365, and others as well. So so I'll be going through with you guys about some of the tips about how to actually leverage some of the services inside the Microsoft 365 to actually improve your external productivity and internal collaboration as well. So I'll be highlighting these few services. So I know that some of you are very familiar with some of the Microsoft 365 products such as Word, Excel, Teams, and others as well. So I'll be sharing with you on some of the other services that we actually have as well over here. So from bookings, forms, Power Automate, Teams, and PowerPoint. So let me just quickly exit from the PowerPoint. And so when we talk about M365, right? So there are a lot of apps and services that we have right now, right? So you can actually see, like, for example, we have, these are the common services that we have, but we in fact actually have many other services that as part of M365 as well, right? So there's, for example, like you can see there's SharePoint Syntax, To Do, Visio, Viva, for example, and many others as well. So you can actually just look at some of the services that we actually have. And if you are inside your office, so I understood that as part of Microsoft for Startups program, you have some access to Microsoft 365 as well. So if let's say you go to office.com, for example, and then you'll be able to actually have a look at once you click on the top left corner over here, and you'll be able to actually see what are the applications that you have access to, right? So so what I wanted to actually do for the first part of this is basically to actually show you guys about the Microsoft bookings, right? So imagine in a situation, for example, that you have a lot of external meetings, or you have external customers. So for example, maybe you are actually running, this is just a sample. For example, you're running a contoso space travel company, right? And then you might have a different schedule for your customers. what type of bookings or calendars that they can actually book your time into it. So, yep.
Sorry, are you sharing your screen? I'm just seeing your PowerPoint deck. Are we supposed to be seeing something else?
Okay. Yeah. Then I'm looking at the.
Yeah, got it.
Is this the right one then?
Yep.
That looks better.
Okay.
Thanks for asking, Nick. I was wondering the same thing.
Yeah, thanks Nick for highlighting that. So just maybe wanted to quickly run through with you guys again. So when we look at the apps and services that Microsoft actually have, for example, so these are the common ones that I've mentioned earlier: Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, for example. But there are many more that that's available for you, right? So you can have like Sway, you can have Stream, SharePoint Syntax, Visio, Viva, and many others as well, right? So you can actually, if you wanted to know what are the available services that are part of your package, what you can actually really quickly do is that you can actually go to just office.com and sign in, and then just click on this particular button, right? So once you click on it, then you'll be able to actually look at some of the other services that you have. So for example, right? So yeah, so that's a very quick overview of like what are the services that you have access to. So the one that I would like to actually really kind of like quickly run through with you is, first one is Microsoft bookings, for example. So just like what I mentioned earlier, so for example, let's say you're running a space travel company, and you wanted to like create a external scheduling or bookings system, right? So we have this what we call the Microsoft Bookings, and it allows you to actually really create this type of external page that the users could really quickly book specific time in your calendar. So for example, I can just select 2 hours trip. So is there any particular stuff? Select the date, the time as well, and just fill in all the details over here. And once I click on book, then the Microsoft for Bookings will actually book your calendars and book the internal calendars as well, right? So this really simplifies your way of like managing your calendars, right? So in a way, what I've seen so far is that a lot of people, when they are emailing with people, other external parties that are part of different teams or your customers, you might want to actually use this to have to get a common time to get together. So for example, right? So just to share you what's the backend actually looks like. So for example, so what you can do is that you can actually just go to this URL, or again, just click on this particular button and then just search for bookings. Then over here, so you'll be able to actually specify what types of calendar that you have. Do you want to add time off? So for example, what are the staff calendar looks like, and many others as well. And you can actually customize the booking page. For example, like if let's say, is this a hidden page? For example, you doesn't want to have any search engine to actually index your page, for example. Do you require password, and many others as well. So if let's say what I wanted to do is that I wanted to basically quickly create maybe another service that I have. So for example, consultation, I can actually just do a 30 minutes duration. For example, I can set the price, I can set it as free, how many attendees that I can specify as part of this particular session. For example, I can just click Save Changes, right? So when I refresh this, I should be able to actually have different types of services that are provided by your company, for example, right? So this is very quick way for you to actually get your bookings or a common time between you and your customers, right? So I think that's the first thing that I just want to share with you. Second thing that I want to share with you is Microsoft Forms, right? So Microsoft Forms is a way for you to actually collect responses, or basically, or for you to actually really quickly do a quiz. So for example, let's say you wanted to create a responses or get responses from your customers, or create a quiz between your between your colleagues, for example, you can actually just quickly just go to forms.office.com and then just click on either of the button over here. So earlier on, I have actually created this particular form, right? So so just keeping in theme with the space travel or the space startup that we have today. So this is just like a simple form that I have created, for example, over here. Then I can actually preview it, right? So what I'm gonna do is that I'm just gonna quickly get the URL over here, and I'll be quickly submitting a responses. Okay, let me just quickly submit a response to show you what are the possible information that you can actually get out there. Oops, so I didn't give a right one. Okay, so I need to change anyone to can respond over here. So I'll go back to this page again. So Aswin age look like hopefully I'm still 18. So when do I want to travel? I just click submit, right? So what happens over here in the backend or the back office that you have is that you will see that I have one responses coming in, right? So I can just click on it, then I can actually view the responses that we have, and I can export it into Excel as well, right? Right. So how many responses that we have and all that, or basically we look at all the results, right? We can just run through one by one. But what I want to do over here is that, hey, why not you actually take a step further, right? For your Microsoft Forms, maybe you wanted to create some automation behind it. So for example, over here, since this is a space travel, for example, I wanted to actually send notification to Microsoft Teams, or you can actually imagine, like, for example, you wanted to actually insert all these to create calendar, to create, to check availability and all that stuff. You can actually do that with Power Platform. So just now, Nick have actually walked through with you on Power Apps. And what I wanted to actually show you is that how you can actually use Power Automate to actually automate some of the tasks that you might have, right? So what is Power Automate? So Power Automate is essentially just imagine it as a platform for you to create a workflow and automation, right? By just dragging and drop the flows that you have, right? So what I have over here is that I actually just launched a Power Automate in Microsoft Teams, right? I can actually do it via browser. So just go to Power Automate website and just sign in and do that. But I could actually do this in Teams as well. So what I'm showing you is that I'm showing you in Teams. So what I can actually do is that I can actually just click on create. So these are some of the Teams template that is very popular. So I'm just gonna choose a very simple one, which is, for example, notify a team when a new form response is submitted, for example, right? Just to let you see what's the type of automation that you could actually do. So I just click next. So then you select the forms that you wanted to monitor to monitor, right? So over here, very importantly is that for a workflow to actually being triggered, so there should be a trigger point. So the trigger point could be various things, right? So over here, our trigger point is that whenever a new form response is submitted, so it actually triggers the workflow itself, right? So you would see that the description on the left as well. So what I wanted to choose is that I'll choose the form, which team that I wanted to notify. So for example, I'll choose a communication team, right? And after that, what are the channel that I wanted to notify, right? So I just notify my communication team and general. So I just quickly create flow. So it's gonna take a few minutes to do that. Oh, okay. So that's really fast. So So let me go to the flow right now. So just to show you flows that we have. Okay, so it's already turned on. So I can actually just show you what is the how does the workflow actually looks like. So you would see that this is how the workflows actually looks like. When a new response is submitted, you post a card in a chat or channel. So I can actually edit over here, right? And then of course I can actually add any actions that I want. Either I wanted to do email or create some conditions, create an Excel. You can actually imagine what are the things that you wanted to do as well, right? So I'm not gonna do that right now, but I just want to show you whenever that I submit a new form, then I would actually get a response. So S22, so when do I want to travel? So maybe next month, and I just click on submit, then I should be able to actually get a new response in my communications team. So let's look at my communications team. So you would see that my communications team actually get the notification in. So your team could actually take action without actually going to the Microsoft Form website to actually have a look at the responses, for example, right? So that's the second tips that I just want to quickly share with you. Okay, hope that you guys are okay so far. So the third tips that I just want to quickly share with you in M365 is about Microsoft Teams itself, right? So Microsoft Teams, recently we have launched something that what we call the Teams webinar, right? So as you know, COVID, for example, a lot of people are actually running webinars and all that. And still, while we are working in hybrid mode right now, you might actually wanted to actually reach out to some of the audience out there, right? So what you can actually do with Microsoft Teams as part of your Microsoft 365 subscriptions over here is that you can actually quickly create Teams webinar easily. So what I can actually do is that, so for example, I can just go to calendar and just add my title, required attendees and all that, right? But over here, this is where things gets interesting, right? So if you look at here, so we have this option require registration, right? So when you create a webinar, you might wanted to actually get some of the details about your audience and all that. So what you can actually do is that you can actually create this for everyone. So I wanted to have an audience over here. So I can actually edit the registration form. So I can just upload a banner, for example, right? Add a title. So space live show, for example, right? So I'll choose for, okay. So I can actually add some fields, customized fields or whatever that you wanted to ask your audience beforehand. I can actually add a speaker. So I'll add Nick over here, chief astronaut, for example, right? So then I'll just click save. So what happens over here is that I can just copy the registration link. I can pass this link to my external parties. You have your EDMs with this link, for example. People can actually just click on this link and then they can register themselves, right? Just add their name, email, and then just basically submit the buttons, right? So that's how easy it is for you to actually create webinars in Microsoft Teams itself. So it's really useful for people to actually create webinars without any other external softwares, for example, right? So that's the third tips. So this is the three, I would say, services that you can actually quickly use, right? For you to actually improve your external collaboration or productivity itself, right? So from bookings, forms, and of course, Microsoft Teams webinar as well, right? So that's the three things that I wanted to quickly show for your external collaboration. But how about internal collaboration, right? If let's say you're working with your developers, your internal teams, how do you actually empower yourself, empower your team to actually collaborate even better? So of course, the software to do that, or the service to actually do that, is through Microsoft Teams itself. So let me quickly change gear to actually go into the internal collaboration piece. So I'm just gonna quickly close this.
I just need to come off. I'm going to come off mute and
Yep.
I'm just mindful of time that we
Yep.
have. It's 7:10, and the sessions usually run for an hour. I know we started late, but we've had people dropping off. So I just want to kind of bring that to everyone's attention and maybe just do a check on how much longer the content goes for. I know we're recording the session, but I also want to respect everybody's time who's actually on the session as well. So have you, I'm not sure how much longer your content goes for, Aswin.
Yep. So maybe I'll just quickly do the last demo, Alice. So maybe I'll just need 1-2 minutes, then I can wrap it off.
It's great content, but as I said, I'm just mindful of everybody.
Yep. I totally understand. I'm in between the dinner. So thank you so much for coming off mute.
Thank you.
So so the third part is that this is how people collaborate with each other mainly, right? So you have teams and channels, for example. But what happens over here is that you have the ability to actually add apps as well, right? So what I have added is actually a GitHub application over here. So that actually is a chatbot that would actually alert me whenever I have any changes to my repository, for example, right? So just now, so for example, over here, so I have the this file that I have just created, right? Then what I can actually do is that I can actually make changes. Then it will actually send a notification to my Microsoft Teams as well, right? So if let's say you look at over here, so I have like one new commit push to master by myself. So for example, so if let's say you are actually collaborating with your fellow developers, for example, you wanted to actually create issues, you wanted to actually monitor some of the issues or activities that are part of your GitHub, because you guys actually get access to GitHub as well. So you can actually set up GitHub, for example, over here, right? So that's kind of like my quick introduction to the apps as well. Then of course, as a startup, you can also create your own application. So for example, over here, so I have created this space PHP application. So essentially, it is a combination of different technologies like a website, and then of course I have the I have also embedded Nick's demo just now, right? So I'm not sure whether it's still live or not, but so what happens over here, you can actually embed your website so that you doesn't need to actually do a context switching, right? So everyone could actually just focus in doing their work in Microsoft Teams itself, right? So I think that's the last demo that I wanted to quickly show. So let me quickly go back to my slides. So what I have covered with you guys is all these four features. I couldn't cover on the last one, which is PowerPoint, but I have the link that have been shared in the slides as well. So you guys could actually go through the slides and then have a look at some of the content over here. So so let me pass the floor back to Alice, so that I don't want to actually get in between the dinner. Thank you.
Thanks, Aswin. There was so much good content between you and Nick. Alex, you're going to just finish us up.
Yeah, Aswin, do you want to just go on to the last slide, please?
Fantastic.
Yep,
thank you.
sure.
Oh, there are all the resources that Aswin's got for you. So the final message I really wanted to share with you. Nick and Aspen both talked about this Microsoft for Startups program. We have Microsoft for Space Startups Australia, which is specifically for startups working in the space industry and space adjacent industries. It gives you all the great benefits that Nick and Aswin talked about, including the Azure credits and access to all those great products that we've just heard about, as well as technical support and fantastic mentoring available for you as you move through the program, from space specialists to technology specialists in each of these product areas that you've heard about. Also connections into the Azure Space Engineering team, local and global resources who can support you as you're developing your solution for the space industry. So you can read more information about that program at aka.ms/AU Space Startups. If you want to have a chat with us, if you want to talk about your idea, you have a question, you have some feedback for us, we're really open to a discussion. You can contact our team at spacestartupsau@microsoft.com. So that's all we've got for today. Thanks, Alice.
Thank you. I think what was really evident to me is the breadth of the tool set that you have and the opportunities to actually do really amazing things in any industry with them. And obviously the way that they can come together for anyone looking to start a space idea is terrific in terms of some of that foundational and the more complicated pieces as well that we didn't have time to get into today. So thank you very much, Nick, Aswin and Alex, and for everybody who's hung on. I'm sure the team are happy to take any questions if anybody has any. We will distribute the links and the slide sets on the community server. Look out for some posts on LinkedIn as well with some of the content information. And thank you to everybody who's participated, and with the recording you get a chance to go back and revisit some things that interested you in particular, or just to refresh at any time and make the most of the generous offers to actually play with some of the tools, which I pronounced wrong, Nick. So it's actually Azure. Azure.
Yeah, I don't think I pronounce it right anyway, so that's fine.
I apologise for that, but it's easier to write than spell. But the tool sets look amazing. So thank you to all of you, and thanks to everybody for joining us this evening.
Thank you, everyone. Most interesting.
Thanks, Eva.
Wonderful. Thanks, Eva.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.